The massive space station gleamed against the star-filled darkness, its crystal towers reaching out like frozen lightning. Inside the Grand Council chamber, 12 different alien species gathered around a circular platform that pulsed with soft blue light. Each species looked completely different from the others. Some were made of living crystal, others were clouds of glowing gas, and a few had bodies that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the platform, his crystal body reflecting the chamber's lights in rainbow patterns. His people, the Vortani, had built most of this station using their natural ability to grow crystal structures with their minds. Around him, the other council members waited in their assigned spaces, each one representing thousands of years of advanced evolution and technological progress. The primitive vessels approach, announced Councillor Thrix, whose gaseous form swirled with different colors as he spoke. His thoughts entered everyone's minds directly, a common ability among his species. Their technology appears to be based on crude metal construction and chemical propulsion. Through the transparent walls of the chamber, they could all see the human ships floating nearby. Compared to the elegant council vessels with their smooth energy fields and living metal hulls, the human ships looked like rough chunks of welded steel and ceramic. Smoke trails still leaked from their engines, and their hull plating showed obvious repair patches. How did they even reach our space with such basic equipment? Wondered Councillor Zeph, whose tentacle-covered form rippled with curiosity. Her species had mastered space travel by learning to swim through the fabric of reality itself. Determination, it seems, replied Veltar, studying the readings from his crystal sensors. Their ships show signs of multiple repairs and modifications. They have traveled much farther than their technology should allow. The main doors of the chamber opened with a soft musical tone, and two humans walked inside. The first was a woman wearing a simple blue and gray uniform with small metal badges on her chest. Her black hair was pulled back neatly, and her dark eyes moved carefully around the chamber, taking in every detail. Behind her walked a younger man in a similar uniform, carrying a small device that beeped softly. Captain Kim Hanna had never seen anything like the Galactic Council chamber. The aliens around her were beyond anything Earth scientists had imagined. Some floated in the air without any visible means of support, others seemed to be made of pure energy contained in roughly humanoid shapes. The crystal being at the center appeared to be the leader, his facete body casting patterns of light across the polished floor. "Welcome, representatives of the species that calls itself human," Veltar's voice echoed through translation devices built into the walls. The sound came out in perfect Korean, though Kim Hanna could hear strange harmonics underneath that suggested the original sounds were nothing like human speech. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Kim Hanna replied, her voice sounding small in the vast chamber. "I am Captain Kim Hanna of the United Earth Coalition vessel * New Hope Star. This is Lieutenant Park Doha, our communications officer." Park Doha activated his translation device and spoke carefully into it. "We are honored by your invitation to visit your station. Our people have dreamed of meeting other intelligent species for many generations." Several of the council members made sounds that might have been laughter, though it was hard to tell with being so different from humans. Councillor Thrix's gaseous form brightened as his thoughts touched their minds again. "Your species shows promise despite its limitations," he projected. "We have observed your recent expansion into space. While your methods are crude, you have managed to establish colonies on several worlds in your local region." Veltar moved closer to the humans, his crystal body chiming softly with each step. "The Galactic Council has decided to offer your species protectorate status. This would place you under our guidance and protection. In return, your people would provide labor and basic technical support for Council projects." Kim Hanna felt Park Doha tense beside her. They had discussed this possibility during the long journey to the Council station. Earth's governments had prepared several different responses depending on what the aliens offered. "We are grateful for your consideration," Kim Hanna said diplomatically. "However, this decision is too important for me to make alone. I must consult with the governments of Earth and our colonies before we can accept any formal arrangements." The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the station's systems. Several council members exchanged what might have been surprised glances, though it was difficult to read expressions on such alien faces. "You require permission from others of your species?" asked Councillor Zeph, her tentacles curling with confusion. "Are you not the leader of your people?" Park Doha stepped forward slightly. "Captain Kim Hanna represents the United Earth Coalition, but major decisions must be approved by elected representatives from all human worlds. We believe that important choices should involve everyone who will be affected by them." "Fascinating," murmured Veltar, his crystal form flickering with what seemed like interest. Your species maintains multiple governing bodies even after achieving space travel. Most civilizations consolidate power long before reaching the stars. Our diversity of perspectives has served us well, Kim Hanna replied firmly. Different viewpoints help us solve problems that might stump a more unified approach. We believe this diversity could benefit the galaxy as well. Counselor Thrix's form darkened slightly. Lack of unity suggests primitive social development. Advanced species learn to move beyond individual perspectives toward collective consciousness or hierarchical efficiency. With respect, Counselor, Park Doha said, our individualism isn't a flaw we need to fix. It's a strength we've learned to use. After several more minutes of discussion, the council members withdrew to confer among themselves. Their conversation took place through methods the humans couldn't follow, light patterns, telepathic exchanges, and energy fluctuations that bypassed the translation system entirely. Finally, Veltar returned to address the human delegation. The council will grant you time to consult with your governments. We classify your species as Category 3, suitable for manual labor and basic technical support, with potential for advancement under proper guidance. Kim Hanna nodded politely, though she noticed Park Doha's jaw tighten at the casual dismissal. Thank you for your patience. We will return with our answer within one standard galactic month. As the human delegation prepared to leave, none of the assembled council members suspected they had just met the species that would fundamentally change galactic civilization. They saw only primitive newcomers with crude technology and chaotic social structures. They had no idea they were looking at the galaxy's future. The warning signal screamed across every council communication channel at the same time. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the crystal corridors of the main station as panicked reports flooded in from the Outer Rim territories. Something was attacking the distant colonies, and whatever it was moved faster than anything the council had ever encountered. Ambassador Veltar rushed to the main command center, his crystal body chiming with urgency as he moved. The holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of council space, with red warning markers spreading like drops of blood across the outer edge. Each marker represented an entire solar system that had gone silent within the past few hours. What are we dealing with? Veltar demanded as he took his position at the central control platform. Counselor Thrix materialized beside him, his gaseous form swirling with agitated colors. Unknown entities. They appear to be energy-based life forms, but unlike anything in our databases. Our long-range sensors detect massive electromagnetic disturbances before each system goes dark. The main screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage from a remote monitoring station. Dark shapes moved through space like living shadows, each one roughly the size of a council battleship but without any solid structure. They seemed to flow and shift as they moved, leaving trails of distorted space behind them. The Kepler colony transmitted this before contact was lost, reported Counselor Zeph, her tentacles trembling with fear. 17 star systems have fallen silent in the past 6 days. We estimate 15 billion beings are either dead or missing. Veltar studied the recordings with growing horror. The shadow creatures moved with purpose and intelligence, surrounding planets and space stations before somehow draining them of all energy. What remained were dead worlds, their atmospheres stripped away and their surfaces scarred by massive energy discharges. Have our fleets engaged these entities? Veltar asked. The 3rd Defense Fleet encountered them at the Rigel Junction, Thrix replied, his colors shifting to deep purple with grief. Admiral Kexron attempted a standard energy bombardment. The weapons passed through the entities without effect. Then they screamed. The command center fell silent. Everyone present knew what that meant. The 3rd Defense Fleet had contained over 40,000 telepathic crew members from various council species. A psychic scream powerful enough to affect them would have been devastating. Survivors? Veltar asked quietly. None that can still function, Zeph reported. The few escape pods we recovered contained crew members in catatonic states. Their minds appeared to be completely shattered. More reports arrived hourly, each one worse than the last. The entities, which the council had begun calling devourers, seemed unstoppable. They consumed entire planets, absorbing all forms of energy before moving on to the next target. Traditional council weapons had no effect on them, and their psychic attacks could disable entire fleets. Within a week, the panic had reached the inner systems. Council members who had never known defeat in their long history began discussing evacuation procedures. Some suggested abandoning the outer territories entirely and falling back to heavily defended core worlds. It was during one of these desperate strategy meetings that Veltar made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Contact the humans, he announced. The chamber erupted in protests and confused chatter. Councillor Thrix's gaseous form turned bright red with indignation. The primitives? What could they possibly do that our advanced fleets cannot? They think differently than we do, Veltar replied, his crystal body flickering with determination. We have exhausted all conventional approaches. Perhaps unconventional thinking is what we need. The emergency transmission reached Captain Kim Hanna aboard the human vessel New Hope, still 3 days away from Earth. She was reviewing reports from the various human colonies when Lieutenant Park Doha burst into her quarters with the message from Ambassador Veltar. Captain, you need to see this immediately, Park Doha said, his face pale with shock. Kim Hanna read the transmission twice before fully understanding its implications. The mighty Galactic Council, with their advanced technology and superior evolution, was asking humanity for help. The same species they had classified as barely suitable for manual labor were now their last hope. Get me Colonel Lee Jiwon, Kim Hanna ordered. And prepare a secure communication link with Earth Command. This changes everything. Colonel Lee Jiwon arrived within minutes, still carrying the tactical reports he had been studying. As humanity's senior military advisor, he had spent his career analyzing potential threats and developing strategies for Earth's defense. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for something like the Devourers. Energy-based entities, Lee Jiwon muttered as he reviewed the Council's data. Immune to energy weapons, psychic attackers, capable of consuming entire planets. Their evolution is impressive. Can we fight them? Kim Hanna asked directly. Lee Jiwon was quiet for several minutes, running calculations on his portable computer and cross-referencing the Devourer characteristics with human weapons systems. Maybe, he said finally. Look at this data. They're energy beings, but they maintain cohesion in normal space. That means they need some kind of physical anchor point to hold their forms together. Kim Hanna leaned over his shoulder to study the tactical analysis. Hidden within the Council's sensor data were tiny crystalline structures at the center of each Devourer entity. The aliens had missed them because they were looking for energy signatures, not physical matter. Crystalline cores, Lee Jiwon continued. Probably what keeps them stable in three-dimensional space. The Council's energy weapons pass right through their outer forms, but kinetic weapons might be able to hit those cores directly. Kinetic weapons? Park Doha asked. You mean bullets and missiles? Exactly, Lee Jiwon grinned. Old-fashioned projectiles. Railguns, explosive warheads, maybe even nuclear torpedoes. The Devourers have evolved perfect defenses against energy attacks, but they've probably never encountered solid projectiles moving at high velocity. Kim Hanna made her decision quickly. Send a message to Ambassador Veltar. Tell him we accept the alliance. Then contact Admiral Song Minji and have him prepare the Fifth Fleet for immediate deployment. 3 days later, the combined Human Council fleet gathered at the edge of the Helix Nebula, where the Devourers were consuming the industrial systems of the Vortani manufacturing worlds. The contrast between the two fleets was striking. Council ships were sleek and elegant, their hulls made of living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid. Human vessels looked crude by comparison, with thick armor plating and weapon systems that stuck out from their hulls like mechanical spines. Captain Oh Soo-jin commanded the human battleship Determination, leading a formation of 12 heavy cruisers armed with rail guns and nuclear torpedoes. Around her, Council vessels provided long-range sensor support and defensive shields, their crews watching nervously as the humans prepared for close combat. Devourer formation approaching, reported Ensign Choi Minho from his position at the sensor station. They're moving to surround us, just like they did with the 3rd Defense Fleet. Captain Oh Soo-jin studied the tactical display with cold calculation. The enemy was using the same strategy that had worked against every previous Council fleet. But humans hadn't survived Earth's violent history by following predictable patterns. Let them surround us, she ordered calmly. All ships, prepare to execute scatter pattern Delta on my command. The Devourers moved confidently into their attack formation, their dark forms spreading out to encircle the human fleet. Their psychic screams began building, preparing to shatter the minds of another group of opponents. Instead, the human ships suddenly scattered in all directions, their courses seemingly random and chaotic. The Devourers paused, confused by this unexpected response. Every previous enemy had either tried to fight or attempted to retreat in an organized formation. Now! Captain Oh Soo-jin shouted. All ships converge on the center mass. Target those crystalline cores. The human fleet turned inward like a closing fist, their rail guns firing streams of dense metal projectiles at incredible velocities. Nuclear torpedoes followed, their proximity fuses set to detonate near the Devourer cores. For the first time in the war, the shadow entities showed signs of damage. Their forms flickered and wavered as projectiles shattered their crystalline anchor points. Several Devourers simply collapsed, their energy patterns dissolving into random electromagnetic noise. The remaining entities tried to retreat, but the humans had anticipated this response. Captain Osujin's tactical planning included contingencies that horrified the Council observers but proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that had never faced such ruthless efficiency. "Pursuit Formation Alpha," she commanded. "Don't let any of them escape to warn the others." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Devourer advance force was completely destroyed, and the human fleet had suffered only minor damage. Across Council space, the impossible news spread quickly: the shadow entities could be defeated. But it was the human tactical methods that truly changed everything. Their willingness to accept casualties, their unpredictable strategies, and their ability to think beyond conventional approaches had accomplished what millions of years of Council military evolution could not. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The crystal spires of New Sol Trading Station gleamed in the light of 3 different suns, their surfaces reflecting the colors of ships from dozens of different worlds. What had started as a simple human colony 50 years ago had grown into the most important commercial hub in the galaxy. Every day, hundreds of vessels docked at its ports, bringing exotic goods, new technologies, and diplomatic messages from across known space. Dr. Park Sunyo stood on the observation deck of the Human Integration Committee headquarters, watching the endless stream of traffic flowing through the station's shipping lanes. In the distance, he could see a massive Vortani crystal hauler unloading raw materials next to a sleek Murtai bioship whose living hull pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. A formation of human cargo vessels waited patiently in the traffic control pattern, their practical designs looking almost primitive next to the alien ships. "It's hard to believe this all started with a simple mining operation," said Ambassador Yang Minji as she joined him at the viewing window. She had arrived that morning from Earth, carrying new diplomatic credentials and updated instructions from the United Earth Coalition. Park Sunyo smiled as he watched a group of young human technicians working alongside crystalline Vortani engineers to repair a damaged docking bay. "The key to our success has been understanding that our differences aren't weaknesses. We're the universal adapters, the species that can work with anyone." Yang Minji nodded, though she looked slightly overwhelmed by the constant activity around them. "The briefings I received on Earth mentioned that humans now serve as mediators for over 60% of interspecies disputes. How did we become so trusted?" "By being genuinely neutral," Park Sunyo explained. "We don't have the telepathic abilities that make other species nervous around the crash. We can't manipulate matter like the Vortani, so nobody worries about us stealing their technology. We're not energy beings like the Nexari, so we don't accidentally drain power from other ships. We're just human." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Kang Yunyo, commander of the merchant vessel Friendship Bridge. His ship was one of dozens in the human commercial fleet that had established regular trade routes connecting systems that had never communicated before. Dr. Park, Ambassador Yang, Kang Yunyo greeted them with a tired smile. "Just returned from the Outer Rim territories. The Qualics want to establish a permanent trade relationship with the Benthari, but they need human mediators to negotiate the cultural differences. The Qualics and the Benthari have been suspicious of each other for 3 centuries, Yang Minji observed. "What makes them think we can help?" "Because we don't take sides," Kang Yunyo replied. "The Qualics communicate through color changes in their skin. The Benthari use subsonic vibrations. Neither species can properly understand the other's language, but humans can learn both systems and translate between them." Park Sunyo had heard similar stories countless times over the past decades. Human flexibility had become legendary throughout the galaxy. While other species were limited by their evolutionary specializations, humans could adapt to almost any environment or situation. The proof was everywhere around them. In the station's medical bay, Dr. Moon Jinsuk was developing new treatments that combined human surgical techniques with Vortani crystal healing and Murtai bioregeneration. Her work had already saved thousands of lives and opened entirely new fields of interspecies medicine. In the military academy on Level 7, instructors from multiple species taught courses based on human strategic thinking. General Lim Naong's textbook on asymmetric warfare had been translated into 47 different languages and communication systems. Her concepts of misdirection, feints, and unconventional tactics had revolutionized how the galaxy thought about conflict. "The humans have taught us that predictability is a weakness," Admiral QEX Ryan of the Aquatic Murtai had said during a recent graduation ceremony. His translator converted his subsonic whale songs into standard galactic language. We have learned to fight like humans think, and it has made us stronger than we ever imagined possible. The success wasn't limited to military applications. Engineer Yoon Taehyung's hybrid technology projects were producing innovations that no single species could have developed alone. His latest creation combined Vortani crystal computing with human mechanical engineering and Nexary energy manipulation. The result was a new type of faster-than-light communication system that could send messages across the galaxy in hours instead of weeks. But perhaps the most important changes were happening in diplomacy and politics. The council chambers now included a permanent human section, where Earth's representatives participated in decisions affecting billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. What had once been a classification as Category 3 laborious had evolved into full membership and equal status. Ambassador Veltar of the Vortani often spoke about the transformation. 50 years ago, we thought humans were primitive because they lacked our specialized abilities. Now we understand that their lack of specialization is what makes them so valuable. They can bridge gaps that we cannot cross. The trading station's main marketplace demonstrated this principle every day. Human merchants worked comfortably with crystalline beings who communicated through light patterns, gaseous entities who spoke in electromagnetic frequencies, and aquatic species who required specially modified atmospheric suits. The humans had learned all of their languages and customs, becoming the universal translators of galactic commerce. Young human diplomats were stationed on dozens of worlds, mediating disputes that had lasted for centuries. Their fresh perspectives and ability to understand multiple viewpoints had resolved conflicts that had seemed impossible to settle. The ancient territorial dispute between the Kresh and the Zephyrians had been settled by a human negotiator who suggested a solution neither species had considered. Cultural exchanges flourished under human coordination. The Great Library on New Sol contained art, literature, music, and scientific knowledge from every known species. Human scholars worked to preserve and share this information, creating the first truly galactic database of knowledge and culture. Trade routes that had been impossible before human involvement now carried goods and ideas across vast distances. The exotic spices of the rim worlds were now available in the core systems. Advanced Vortani computing crystals were being used to improve life on primitive colony worlds. The galaxy had become more connected than ever before in its history. As Park Sunyo watched the constant activity around the trading station, he felt a deep satisfaction. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not by trying to compete with other species' strengths, but by offering something unique, the ability to work with anyone, understand any perspective, and adapt to any situation. The future looked brighter than anyone could have imagined when Captain Kim Hanna first stood before the Council 50 years ago. The galaxy had entered a golden age of cooperation and prosperity, with humans at its heart. None of them knew that in the shadows of this success, some of their most trusted allies were already planning to destroy everything they had built together. The warning sirens began screaming at exactly 0347 Galactic Standard Time. Emergency lights bathed the Council Command Center in harsh red light as urgent reports flooded in from the Outer Rim territories. Something was attacking the frontier colonies, and whatever it was moved with terrifying speed and coordination. Admiral QEX Ryan's massive aquatic form floated in his specialized tank as he studied the incoming data. His subsonic voice vibrated through the water and into the translation systems. Unknown fleet composition. Estimated 300 vessels. They appeared without any advance warning and immediately began bombardment of our defensive stations. President Shin Jae-ho arrived at the command center within minutes, still wearing his civilian clothes from the emergency wake-up call. As humanity's senior representative to the Council, he had participated in countless crisis meetings over the past 50 years, but nothing had prepared him for the scale of destruction shown on the holographic displays. Who are they? Shin Jae-ho asked as he took his position at the human consultation station. Ambassador Veltar's crystal form flickered with agitation. They call themselves the Hegemony. Our databases contain no record of this organization, but their technology appears to be highly advanced. They are using adaptive weapon systems that adjust to counter our defensive measures in real time. The main display showed grainy footage from the attack on the Kepler defense station. Unknown warships, sleek and dark, moved in perfect formation as they systematically destroyed the Council's outer defenses. What made the footage truly disturbing was how easily they overcame systems that had protected the galaxy for centuries. Our energy shields lasted less than 10 minutes, reported Councillor Thrix, his gaseous form swirling with distress. Their weapons somehow analyzed our defensive frequencies and modified their output to penetrate our barriers. The station's crew had no time to evacuate. More reports arrived hourly, each one worse than the last. The hegemony forces moved from system to system with ruthless efficiency, destroying military installations and capturing strategic resources. Their technology seemed to anticipate every council countermeasure, adapting to new defensive strategies almost instantly. Within 72 hours, 3 entire star systems had fallen under hegemony control. Millions of beings were either dead or imprisoned on conquered worlds. The council's outer defensive line, built over thousands of years, had collapsed completely. "We need to organize a counterattack," Shinjeiho said during the emergency strategy session. "But first we need to understand how they are defeating our technology so easily." Admiral Kim Minsu, humanity's senior military commander, had been analyzing the tactical data since the first reports arrived. His weathered face showed the strain of 3 days without sleep as he presented his findings to the assembled council members. "The hegemony's advantage comes from their rigid command structure," Kim Minsu explained, pointing to patterns in the attack formations. "Every ship responds to centralized control nodes that coordinate their adaptive systems. It's incredibly efficient, but it's also a weakness." "How so?" asked Councillor Zeph, her tentacles curling with interest. "Cut off the command nodes, and the whole system breaks down," Kim Minsu continued. "Their ships can't adapt individually. They rely on the central intelligence to analyze and counter our tactics. Disrupt that communication network, and they become vulnerable." The plan that emerged from the strategy sessions was ambitious and dangerous. Human stealth ships would penetrate deep into hegemony territory to identify and mark the command vessels. Council fleets would then launch coordinated strikes to destroy these targets simultaneously, crippling the enemy's ability to coordinate their adaptive defenses. It required unprecedented cooperation and trust between all Council species. Humanity would share their most advanced stealth technology and intelligence-gathering capabilities. The Council would provide access to their most powerful weapons and shield systems. Together, they would create a combined force capable of defeating an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. "This is our chance to show what the galaxy can accomplish when we work together," Shinjeiho told the assembled delegates. 50 years of alliance have led to this moment. The preparation took weeks. Human engineers worked alongside Vortani technicians to modify stealth systems for optimal performance. Murtai biologists collaborated with human strategists to develop new infiltration techniques. Every species contributed their unique abilities to the common effort. Lieutenant Commander Hong Ji-hyun commanded the intelligence monitoring station aboard the human vessel Silent Observer. Her job was to intercept and decode enemy communications, searching for weaknesses in the hegemony's command structure. She had been working 18-hour shifts for 2 weeks, gradually building a picture of how the enemy operated. It was during one of these long monitoring sessions that she detected something that made her blood run cold. Hidden within the routine hegemony transmissions were energy signatures she recognized from decades of working with Council technology. "Colonel Bae Sora, please report to the intelligence station immediately," Hong Ji-hyun called over the ship's communication system. Her voice was carefully controlled, but those who knew her could hear the tension underneath. Colonel Bae Sora arrived within minutes, her expression serious as she read the preliminary analysis Hong Ji-hyun had prepared. The data was unmistakable but almost impossible to believe. "Are you certain about these readings?" Bae Sora asked quietly. "I've checked them 17 times, Hong Ji-hyun replied. "The Vortani crystal resonance patterns, the Kresh telepathic frequencies, and the Nexri energy signatures are all present in active communication with hegemony command vessels." The implications were staggering. 3 of the Council's most trusted species were in secret contact with the enemy. As Hong Ji-hyun continued her analysis over the following days, the full scope of the betrayal became clear. The intercepted messages revealed detailed negotiations between hegemony leadership and representatives from the Vortani, Kresh, and Nexri governments. The Council species were offering to surrender human territories and military secrets in exchange for favorable treatment when the war ended. The human tactical capabilities represent a long-term threat to galactic stability, read one decoded transmission from the Vortani leadership. Their unpredictable nature and aggressive instincts make them unsuitable allies for advanced civilizations. Another message from the Kresh High Council was even more direct: humanity's influence has grown too great. They have access to our most sensitive technologies and military strategies. The hegemony's offer provides an opportunity to remove this threat while preserving our own interests. The evidence was overwhelming and heartbreaking. Species that had fought alongside humanity for 50 years, that had benefited from human innovation and cooperation, were planning to sell them out to preserve themselves. When President Shin Jae-ho received the intelligence report, he sat in silence for nearly an hour. The betrayal cut deeper than any military defeat could have. These weren't just allies abandoning humanity in a time of crisis, they were actively working to destroy everything the galaxy had built together. The confrontation took place in the Council's main assembly hall. President Shin Jae-ho presented the evidence calmly and methodically, letting the intercepted communications speak for themselves. The accused species didn't deny their involvement. Ambassador Veltar's crystal form showed no emotion as he responded to the charges. The hegemony represents the future of galactic civilization. Order, stability, predictable development. Your species' chaotic influence threatens this progress. 50 years of alliance, Shin Jae-ho said quietly. 50 years of trust, cooperation, and mutual support. Was it all meaningless to you? You are still primitives, Councillor Thrix replied, his gaseous form pulsing with cold light. Dangerous primitives with access to advanced technology. The hegemony offered a solution to this problem. The human response was swift and absolute. Within 6 hours, every human ship in Council space received recall orders. Every joint operation was terminated immediately. Every shared technology project was shut down. Human personnel began evacuating from stations and colonies throughout Council territory. If trust means nothing to you, President Shin Jae-ho announced in his final address to the Council, then humanity will face this threat alone. As the last human transport ships departed from Council space, the galaxy held its breath. The most successful alliance in galactic history had just destroyed itself on the eve of its greatest challenge. Neither the humans nor their former allies fully understood the catastrophe they had set in motion. The hegemony watched these developments with satisfaction, knowing that their greatest threat had just been neutralized not by military force, but by the galaxy's own fear and betrayal. The real war was about to begin. The crystal spires of the Vortani homeworld cracked like breaking glass as hegemony weapons rained down from the darkened sky. Ambassador Veltar watched from his command bunker as centuries of architectural achievement crumbled into sparkling dust. The weapons destroying his people's greatest city were based on designs his own government had secretly provided to the enemy. Sir, the planetary shields are failing, reported his aide, her crystal voice ringing with despair. The hegemony forces are using our own defensive frequencies against us. Veltar's form flickered with bitter irony. The very betrayal that was supposed to protect his people had instead guaranteed their destruction. The hegemony had taken the Vortani's military secrets and used them to create weapons specifically designed to shatter crystalline technology. Open a transmission to Earth, Veltar ordered. Emergency frequency. Sir, the humans recall all their personnel. They will not respond to our communications. Try anyway, Veltar insisted. We were wrong. Without human unpredictability, we have become predictable. But the transmission channels remained silent. Earth had cut all contact with the Council species that had betrayed them. The humans were gone, and with them had vanished the galaxy's only hope of defeating the hegemony's adaptive technology. Across Council space, the same story repeated itself on world after world. The Kresh telepathic networks were jammed by psychic weapons they had helped develop. The Nexari energy beings found themselves drained by power absorption technology based on their own biology. Every secret shared during the treacherous negotiations became a weapon pointed at its former owners. Within 6 weeks, the Council's outer territories had fallen completely. The hegemony's advance seemed unstoppable as they moved toward the core worlds with methodical efficiency. Their adaptive systems countered every defensive strategy the Council could devise. But the hegemony leaders were not satisfied with merely defeating the Council. Intelligence reports indicated that human colonies existed beyond the traditional boundaries of Council space. These isolated settlements represented an opportunity to demonstrate their complete dominance over the galaxy. The humans believe they can survive without our protection, declared Hegemony Supreme Commander Zexton during a strategy briefing. We will show them the price of their arrogance. The target chosen for this demonstration was New Busan, a mining colony on the edge of human space. Intelligence suggested it was lightly defended and populated mainly by civilian workers. The hegemony assigned a medium-sized fleet to the operation, expecting minimal resistance. Admiral Jo Hyun-woo received the attack warning with grim satisfaction. He had commanded human forces during the Devourer Wars 50 years earlier, when humanity first proved their worth to the galaxy. Unlike many of his colleagues, he had never fully trusted the Council's promises of eternal friendship. Sir, enemy fleet approaching, reported Captain Kwon Jisoo from the colony's defense center. 37 vessels, standard hegemony configuration. Jo Hyun-woo studied the tactical display with the cold calculation that had made him legendary among human military commanders. Without council restrictions on acceptable tactics, he was free to employ methods that would have horrified the galaxy's more civilized species. Deploy the virus packages, he ordered. Full-spectrum electronic warfare. And activate the psychological operations broadcasts. The hegemony fleet approached New Busan expecting to face conventional defenses. Instead, they encountered something the galaxy had never seen before, humanity unleashed without the restraining influence of more advanced allies. The first surprise came when their ship's computer systems began malfunctioning. Human hackers had developed computer viruses specifically designed to attack hegemony adaptive protocols. The enemy's greatest strength became a weakness as their own systems turned against them. "What is happening to our navigation?" demanded hegemony Captain Thexvor as his ship veered wildly off course. "Unknown software intrusion," his technical officer reported. "The adaptive systems are receiving conflicting commands." The second wave of attacks targeted the crews directly. Human psychological warfare specialists broadcasted carefully crafted signals designed to trigger fear and confusion among different alien species. The sounds of human warfare, screaming, explosions, the roar of primitive chemical weapons, filled the enemy ship's communication channels. But it was the third phase that truly shocked the hegemony forces. Hundreds of small human drones, barely larger than fighters, approached their fleet in seemingly suicidal attacks. The hegemony commanders laughed at this primitive tactic until the first drone exploded against their flagship shields. "Kamikaze attacks," Jo Hyun-woo explained to his staff as they watched the battle unfold. "The hegemony's adaptive systems are designed to counter sophisticated weapons. They don't know how to handle opponents willing to die for victory." Each drone carried enough explosive power to damage a capital ship. More importantly, they were piloted by artificial intelligence systems that learned from each attack, adapting their approach to maximize damage. The hegemony's own adaptive technology couldn't keep up with opponents that improved their tactics with every suicide run. "This is Admiral Jo Hyun-woo of the New Busan Defense Force," his voice echoed across all frequencies as the hegemony fleet retreated in disorder. "You wanted to see what humans are like without council influence? Consider this your first lesson." The destruction of the hegemony's demonstration fleet sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Suddenly, the war had become a three-way conflict, with human forces operating independently of both major factions. Over the following months, the strategic situation deteriorated for everyone involved. The Council, despite their weakened state, still controlled key manufacturing worlds and resource centers. The hegemony held most of the territory but found their forces stretched thin across vast distances. Meanwhile, human raiders struck at both sides with unpredictable tactics that defied conventional military analysis. "We created this situation," admitted Councillor Thrix during a secret meeting of surviving council leaders. "Our betrayal drove the humans away, and now they fight like cornered animals." The final straw came when human forces began targeting supply lines and communication networks with surgical precision. Without their adaptive coordination systems, hegemony fleets became vulnerable to council counterattacks. Without human tactical expertise, council forces remained predictable targets for hegemony weapons. The war was consuming the galaxy, and everyone was losing. 6 months after the attack on New Busan, 2 separate delegations arrived at Luna Station in Earth's solar system. Representatives from both the shattered council and the desperate hegemony sought the same thing: an end to a conflict that threatened to destroy galactic civilization. President Lee Se-young met with each delegation in separate chambers, her conditions clear and non-negotiable. A new galactic charter based on mutual respect and binding agreements. Real consequences for betrayal. And humanity serves as neutral arbiter for all future disputes. The negotiations took weeks, but eventually both sides accepted humanity's terms. The alternative was continued warfare that would reduce the galaxy to ruins. The new Galactic Compact was signed in the rebuilt halls of Luna Station, establishing humanity not as junior partners or advanced members, but as the keepers of galactic peace. Their unique position, trusted by none but needed by all, created a balance that had eluded the galaxy for millennia. Fleet Admiral Park Seong-jun often reminded new human recruits of the war's lessons. The galaxy learned that humans make the best allies when trusted, and the worst enemies when betrayed. The choice of which one they face has always been theirs. The irony was not lost on the surviving council members. In trying to remove humanity as a threat, they had made them indispensable. The species they had once classified as primitive now held the fate of galactic civilization in their hands. And this time, The humans intended to make sure that trust, once given, would never be broken again.